Welcome to the Social Hour Podcast, a podcast for sewists by sewists. I'm your host, Audra.
And I'm your host, Bethany. And on today's episode, we're talking about why we sew, which might seem like a pretty obvious topic or things, but we're going to dive into it a little differently, which I'm really excited about. And Audra was the one that was like, hey, I think we should take this kind of approach to talk about these things. And I was like, I love that. So I hope you guys are going to enjoy today's episode. And you know, why it's personal to us, but also like how we can benefit from it in so many different ways. So with that being said, Audra, I'm excited about this topic today.
Yeah, I think it's a great topic. And I think we all know the tangible reasons why we sew is because you get that finished good from beginning to end. But the reality is it's deeper than that. It's more than that. And I don't think we truly realize the benefits that we're receiving that are intangible, that are happening behind the scenes. And it's kind of fun to bring those to the surface, which also gives us a better excuse to go sew and make time for ourselves.
I would say, based on what we're going to talk about, I do take some of these things for granted. And so I think it's good that we're talking about it, because it might be things that our listeners have probably never even considered or thought about, but also things to keep in mind so that we can continue to sew as well. So before we dive into all of that jazz, let's start with our icebreaker question. And I picked a fun one today. Selfish plug here. I really just wanted to do something a little different and silly because this is like a deeper topic. So today's icebreaker question, and if you would like to answer this as well, which I would love for you to, you can hop over to the Social Sewists Facebook group and join us over there and answer the question in the episode thread where we continue the conversation. Today's question is, if you had to be any fictional character for a day, who would you choose? Audra?
For this one, there's a book series that is 50 plus books deep at this point. It is called the In Death series by J.D. Robb. And J.D. Robb is actually an alternative pen name for Nora Roberts. And there's a character named Eve Dallas, and she is a detective in New York. And she solves all these incredible crimes, and it takes place in late 2050s, early 2060s. So slightly into the future, but still familiar. And she's just really, really good at what she does. And I think it'd be really cool to live a day in her shoes, because she's a pretty I was going to say badass. I probably shouldn't say that. She's a pretty cool lady. So maybe we'll leave that in there. We'll see. I just think she's really awesome. And I think it'd be really cool to experience a day in her life.
I went a totally different, playful route. And this also stems from things I'm seeing on social media right now. So one of my favorite movies is The Devil Wears Prada, because I went to fashion school. I love all things fashion. It was always a dream of mine to move to New York and work in the industry and literally live the life that Andy Sachs has from The Devil Wears Prada. So for me, that would be her. But the reason I thought of this was because they are filming The Devil Wears Prada 2. And there have been some videos that have circulated recently, people catching them filming live in New York. There was this one girl that was out, she was taking a lunch break and she had her lunch with her. And she's literally standing on the street corner in New York, eating her lunch on her lunch break, watching Anne Hathaway filming The Devil Wears Prada scenes in a building across the street. They were sitting along the window in what looked like a little lunch cafeteria or whatever. And they were filming there, and they were all videotaping it. And then when they got done with the scene, Anne turns around and waves to all of them, because they were all like a crowd had gathered. And I was like, that's so cool. This movie is just one of those guilty pleasures. Anytime I'm I don't know what I want to watch, or I'm just in a weird mood, I just put it on because it always makes me laugh.
Devil Wears Prada is a big conversation in our house right now. Charlie has seen Devil Wears Prada. She's a super amped for Devil Wears Prada too. And Devil Wears Prada has kind of a soft spot in my heart. The first time I ever saw that movie, I was actually flying home from a business trip in New York. So I had I was 22 and I had gone out to New York. I was working in consumer product goods at the time, and we were setting up a showroom in the textile district in New York. So I had been in New York. We were setting up a showroom in New York, and we were flying home from New York. And I was sitting on the airplane with my boss watching this movie. It was the first time I'd ever seen it. Every time I see that movie, I'm like transported back to my early 20s. Flying home from New York was like one of my first big business trips. It's like that captures that little memory moment.
Oh yeah, it just never gets old. So
never.
If you would like to answer our question today, please hop over to the Social Sewists Facebook group and you can share your answer over there. Or if you're watching on YouTube, you can just leave a comment on this episode. We'd love to hear your answer to today's icebreaker question. Are you ready to dive into our why we sew topic today?
When we talk about why we sew, we're putting it under the umbrella of sewing, but I think you can really apply this to any creative outlet, whether it's knitting, crocheting, drawing, watercolor, you name it. I think a lot of these apply to any one of those creative outlets. And I think we'll start with kind of some of the mental benefits of those creative outlets. And specifically, we'll say the mental benefits of sewing and how that helps some of our mental health.
I will say I don't always appreciate the mental benefit until I'm sitting there doing it and I'm like, gosh, I really needed that. I really needed that hour to just sit and sew without distractions or interruptions. I really needed that. And to me, it's a way for me to, for lack of better words, disassociate from my stressful responsibilities that I have with like work or life or other things that are going on that are just hard and challenging. It can be an escape from reality sometimes when you just need a break. And sitting and scrolling or playing games on your phone, like that's not really benefiting you, but to be able to use your hands and create something, even if it's just playful stitching, you feel productive at the end and you come out feeling like you didn't just waste an hour, like you do like doom scrolling, right? Which we all do. But I will say, like, just the mindfulness of like having something else to focus on. A lot of times I put in like an audiobook or a podcast or a true crime episode of some sort just to really like zone out and just focus on what I'm making, whether it's just straight stitching on a quilt that's just kind of like repetitive, or if I'm like trying to challenge myself on a new technique. Either way, I'm getting mental benefits from that.
And those repetitive movements can actually be very like meditative and you don't realize it, but some of that just repetitive motion is almost an active meditation, an active restoration for yourself.
Would you say like the hum of your machine can be very soothing too? Like sometimes I just sit in there in silence and I just listen to my machine and I'm like, zoop, like I'm just like, I sew really fast. So I love feeling the power of the machine and hearing it. And honestly, it's the best way to kind of learn the sounds that your machine makes because they all sound a little different. So you can recognize things that might not sound correct sometimes. But for me, the sound of a machine, I find very therapeutic.
And it's funny how you do become in tune to it because I'll be talking about it a little bit later. But last week I was in a situation where there were multiple machines around me. And you don't realize how much you've taken in when I could hear like two machines down. I'm like, oh, they're out of bobbin thread. Oh, there's something not right. Like you start to like actually, you realize it. But
you know what? I do that at Sewing Club because I've gotten used to my friends' machines even, and I'm always listening and everybody will be chatting and everything and somebody's machine will make a noise and I'm like, that didn't sound good. And I'm like, that, you okay over there? And they're like, oh yeah, I don't know what happened. And I'm like, do you want me to come look at it? Like, I'm the person that's like, do you want me to come look at it? You okay? Like, don't keep sewing. Like, let's fix that. And it's probably like a broken needle or you got a little nesting jam or ran out of bobbin or whatever it is. But I'm like, I hear it. And I'm like, oh, that's not right.
Not good.
We got to fix that before you keep going. So it's so funny. so funny how we do that.
This episode, we came with data because this will help you validate all those feelings of like, oh, should I spend all that time sewing? Yes, you absolutely should. And we have studies for you to cite. Let's talk about the first one. Man, I double majored in history because I liked history. I wear the I'm a Trekkie. I love sci-fi. I love fantasy. I double majored just because I like history. I wear the nerd flag proudly.
I mean, I'm right there with you, and I love backing things up with science or numbers or facts or stats or things that can't be argued.
Yeah.
Like it's not like we're just sharing our personal opinions. We're like coming to you with like proven data of why what we're talking about today is tangible. So let's hear it.
So here's the first one. Let's talk about how it can actually reduce your stress level. And we have a study from 2013 from the British Journal of Occupational Therapy that found that 81% of respondents with depression reported feeling happier after knitting. And while that study focused solely on knitting, like we said earlier, this is transferable to any creative skill, especially with repetitive motion, rhythmic hand movements. And then we also need to talk about that creative engagement and the tangible benefits of feeling like you accomplished something. Yeah. So the mental health benefit of going, I sat here, I did this, I was in active meditation, and I have this tangible thing that came out of it that I can say I did. So that is something we can hang our hat on and feel really, really proud of.
It's just proof that like being creative, and there's a lot of people that are like, oh, I'm not creative. And I'm like, anybody can be creative.
Yeah.
I think people get so focused on that it won't look good or it won't turn out like so-and-so's or they're, I'm just not a creative person. Everybody has a creative side. It doesn't mean that it has to look perfect or you got to hang it on the wall when you're done or like display your craft. It's the act of being creative that's important.
Yeah. And feeling happier is obviously subjective. I mean, feeling happier changes from person to person. So when we say people felt happier, well, obviously that can be taken a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
But ultimately, take a moment, next time you sit down to make something or do something with your hands, take kind of like an assessment of how you felt when you started. Like, what was your stress level from 1 to 10? How were you feeling? Maybe make a note, write on Post-it. My stress was at an 8. Okay. And then maybe an hour later, after you've been creative for that time, stop and take note and go, okay, where is my stress level now? Is it the same? Is it improved? Is it really improved? I mean, I would argue that if an hour later your stress went from an 8 to a 6, that's an improvement. It might not be an 8 to a 2, but at least you made progress in the right direction.
Have you ever seen those videos? It was kind of trending for a while where couples or families get together and they all have easels and they're painting the other person without them seeing, and they have like an hour or 30 minutes or whatever to paint each other. And then they like reveal their paintings, and some of them are really good. And people are like, I didn't even know you were creative. Like you were like talented like that. And then others are just so horrific. But it's not even about the painting. It's about the fact that 1, they're connecting with each other. 2, they're spending quality time off the phone and device. 3, they're having fun and laughing about it. Nobody's expecting you to be Picasso over here, and some of them kind of do look like Picasso, but it's just fun. It's a way to spend quality time and connect. And I think that that's a prime example of how being creative, no matter what the craft, can bring people together, whether it's something you want to do every day or something you just do every once in a while. So it's so fun to just get a little messy and have some fun. But I thought of that when you were talking about that, just how it's a way to bring people together and connect, and how that is such like mentally benefiting. Especially when you're going through like a hard time or stressful time. It may feel like, oh, I don't have time to spend an hour to sit and paint. Well, you really do, because otherwise you're just going to sit and scroll on your phone, and we all do it. So maybe this is going to challenge some people to go, you know what? I've seen that trend. I always thought it was really cute. I loved watching those videos. Maybe I'm going to do it. And if you don't have anyone to do it with, just do it with yourself. Do it with your dog, like who cares? Like,
make it a challenge. Yeah. Well, and it's creative expression.
Yeah.
And that is something that you don't ever have to apologize for. We're not looking to be the next Banksy or the next like Picasso. We're looking
Yeah.
to just put our feelings out there in whatever form that is. And I think that is truly what we can take all that stress and turn it into positive emotions moving forward and seeing something tangible come out of it. I think we can roll into, so we've talked about the mental health benefits, which we've talked about quite a bit on this podcast. So we're going to make that like super short and sweet, because ultimately there's other benefits that you might not be aware of that truly can be lifelong impacts for you in your health. And those are the physical benefits and the brain benefits of being creative. Let's talk about hand-eye coordination and fine motor skills. So we've got like major motor skills, which is like me moving my arms like I do when I talk with my hands, or taking the dog for a walk like I do every morning. Those are major motor skills. But the fine motor skills of threading a needle or using a fork or any one of those things are super important to how we function throughout our lives. And that is preserved through some of those acts like sewing. The research insight I have for today is the Journal of Neuropsychiatry reported that hobbies involving hand-eye coordination and sequencing, like quilting or sewing, can help delay memory loss and cognitive decline in adults. Like, that's huge, because you hear all the time in the news about Alzheimer's and dementia and those cognitive issues that we can encounter as we get older. So if you can look at your hobby and say, this is something that not only helps me stay in tune with myself mentally, but physically actually helps me hopefully delay potential effects of aging in memory loss and cognitive decline. And that's huge.
This is a sensitive topic for me, because I watched my grandmother go through like 10 years of dementia and Alzheimer's decline. And it was so slow but progressive. And it was just hard for it to watch her lose her ability to do what she loved to do. And so it's kind of like a fear of mine to experience that. The other side, and I'm going to try not to get emotional, and I didn't expect this to come up today, but as a lot of you probably know, if you follow me on social media, I struggle with migraines severely. I am not looking for medical advice. I'm just sharing a story. But back in 2017, when I was 32 years old, I had a minor stroke from a migraine. I called a complex migraine. I didn't even know that was possible. So if you didn't know either, now you do. And I lost control over the right side of my body. And as someone who is extremely creative and always has been, as I'm sitting there in the neuro ICU for 4 days, learning to use the right side of my body again, to talk properly, use my right hand, use my right leg, walking with a walker up and down the hallways, doing physical therapy, speech therapy. That was really scary, because I thought, how am I gonna create? How am I gonna sew again? How am I gonna paint again? How am I gonna do woodworking again? How am I gonna do all these things that I love to do if I can't use the right side of my body? It was extremely scary. And I know that there are a lot of people who have gone through scary things like that have maybe impacted their lives permanently, and they've had to find workarounds. And I will say that there are a lot of ways that we can continue to be creative, even with those kind of challenges. And I've seen it firsthand. I've seen, people with different disabilities be able to still create. So I think for me, even though I was able to recover, I still have issues from it, but that most people don't even notice, but I do. And I get frustrated with it sometimes. But I will say I worked really hard to get back to being able to do what I love. But it is hard. It is scary. And me continuing to push myself to get back to the point where I could continue to do what I love really helped in my physical rehabilitation, that I was just so focused on getting it back because I was scared of losing it. But reality is, me focusing on that and what I love to do is actually what helped me recover. So if you ever go through anything like having, there's a lot of people with what we do, we work with our hands so much. My mom's an example. She's had to have that surgery for carpal tunnel and stuff. And that can be really scary. Like, am I going to be able to create again? Like, this is what I love to do. It's my outlet. And just focusing on why you love to do it and letting that be your guide to like continue to help heal. Leading with a focus of you want to get back there, not a focus of like fear that you can't, I think is a big part of it. And I think that's, for me, why it helped me develop my motor skills again after losing them so abruptly and in such a scary way. So I just wanted to share that because it can happen at any point. And I choose to live with this mindset now that and maybe this is why I drive so hard to create so much. It's because I don't know if it could be taken away again at any point, because I still have very chronic migraine. That hasn't gone away. So there is an underlying fear that I always have in the back of my mind going, am I going to lose that ability again? And that's scary. So anyways, not to be Debbie Downer over here, but it's just true. It just popped in my head when you were talking about this. And I was like, yeah, like I've lived this.
What's beautiful is you, at least I think, you still find the joy in creating, knowing all that has happened and all that could happen. It almost makes it more, it seems to me, and you'll have to please correct me, like it seems more special for you because of that lived experience.
Well, and having it taken away, even just for a little while, I was like, it was a little slap of reality, right? And knowing that could happen again, even though I work really hard to do everything I can to prevent that from happening, you just never know. I mean, we can't predict the future. So that's why I'm like, everybody's like, I don't know how, like, and Audra says this to me all the time. She's like, I don't know how you do all that you do. And I was like, because I don't know how much time I have to be able to do all that I want to do. And so I always have this like ticking clock in the back of my head going, like time's running out. And everybody's like, you've got time. You're only 40. And I'm like, haha, but I was 32 when that happened. So it to me, I just have a different perspective on it, having lived through that. So yeah, I'm like, I want to do all the things. I want to sew all the things. I want to try all the crafts. I want to be able to feel like I've checked all the boxes that I want to do that make me feel complete.
I think what's really cool, what I've seen in our industry, is a lot of focus on creating tools to adapt as well for people who maybe also had strokes, but maybe weren't able to recover to the point that you have. Or I have rheumatoid arthritis. So being able to work with people that have arthritic limitations. And so I think it's really cool. And do not let those physical limitations stop you, because I think so many industries have created tools to help people still be creative, if even with those limitations. And if you're having a hard time finding those, reach out to us, reach out to the manufacturer, see if there's someone who has created something that works for you to still be able to create, because ultimately those physical and mental benefits are so worth it, to find your own path forward.
It's, as you were saying that, there was a lady that I met at a fabric store one day, and we were talking about these pre-cut quilt kits. Everything was like pretty much cut for you to piece it together. And it like made her tear up. She was so excited to find it. And I was asking her why it made her emotional. And she said she held out her hands and her hands shook really bad. She's like, it's gotten to the point where I can't cut. I can sew because I can put my hands on the sewing machine. She's like, but to hold a rotary cutter or a pair of scissors is really hard for her to do. And she really misses sewing. And this was going to allow her to continue to be able to create because those pieces were cut for her. And so I just had never really thought of it that way. But when she shared that with me, I was like, again, it's another way that people are finding ways to still be creative and work around their limitations. I know several sewists that are in wheelchairs, and so they obviously don't use a foot control on the floor, but they will use it on the table next to them or put it like up under their arm and use their arm as their foot control.
That's creative.
It's very creative. Or they're, if they can, some of them will put it like between their knees if they can like do that, right? So it just kind of depends on the person, but I've seen people like hold the fabric with one hand and use their other hand as their foot control. And so there's definitely adaptations to it, and even machine features that can help be adaptive to still be able to create, like having a machine that has like the start stop button, so you don't need a foot control at all. So there's just different ways, and I'm glad that we're talking about the physical benefits of being creative, but also that if you have any physical disabilities or limitations, that it doesn't mean you can't be creative.
I have one final little research nugget before we move on to our final segment on this topic. According to Dr. Carrie Barron, who is the co-author of The Creativity Cure, creativity can work like a stimulant in the brain's reward center, meaning it increases dopamine, improves mood, and even acts as a natural antidepressant. I love this because I'm the workout one of our duo here.
Yeah.
And I love dopamine. I like the dopamine effects of a good workout and the positive impact. So the fact that I can get like a dopamine rush from my creative outlet as well as my exercise one, I am here for that.
Why do you think I sew so fast? Pedal to the metal.
Bethany's workout is pedal to the metal.
Yes.
My workout is lifting the metal.
My workout is a quilt sandwich. Can we just all admit that making a quilt sandwich will break a sweat? Like, I don't care how well in shape you are. Like, whew, there's gotta be an easier way. But like, this is so true. I get such a high from finishing a project. And even if I'm not finished with it, if it's a project that's challenging me and I'm tackling it step by step, and like my son walks by or Brett walks by and I'm like, look at what I've done so far. Look at my progress. I love showing them my projects when they're done too. And they're just like, cool. But honestly, a lot of times they're like, that's really cool. They're really very complimentary of it, and like seeing me create and do things. So I don't know. It's one thing to share a picture of it or a video of it online, but to share it with the people who are your biggest supporters. Honestly, Audra probably sees pictures of my projects finished before anybody else, other than the people that I live with, because I'm like, look what I did today. I haven't taken the nice photos, but I'm going to give you a photo of it because I'm just so excited that I finished it. And I think that kind of leads us into talking about connection and community and confidence and all of that comes with sewing and being creative.
When it comes to community, I think creative outlets and being able to get together and share what you enjoy making with others is just such a huge part of what we do, whether it's virtual or in person. And I know, Bethany, you do that with your sewing group once a month.
I mean, sewing club is okay. I pack up everything, literally bring everything in the kitchen sink, and it's a lot of work every single time. And we get there early, we set up all the tables, we stay late, we put it all away, we make sure everything's cleaned up, and everybody else just gets to come and enjoy it. And even though it's extra work for us, we get so much benefit out of having that connection once a month that it's not work. Right? Like, it's worth it. It doesn't feel like a chore. It just is like easy. And yeah, every once a month, one Saturday a month, I'm packing up a lot of my sewing supplies and taking it back and forth. But to me, it's worth it because the connection can be so beneficial.
It really got me thinking about setting one up here, because I know I should. Okay, if you're in the Madison, Wisconsin area and you're interested in a monthly sewing club, like,
this is how it starts.
Let me know.
This is how it starts.
Let me know. I think it'd be a blast.
There is a video over on my YouTube channel, Craft with Bethany, that walks through how I started a sewing club. I got asked to talk about that many times because people were interested, but they just didn't know where to get started. And so I made a whole video about it. And Jennifer, who helps me with the sewing club here, she got on the video with me. We actually stepped away from sewing club for like a few minutes and went outside on the patio and recorded it and then came back in. So it's definitely just a raw like video of us like talking about what we did, how we found our location, how we got outreach, how we connect with the community, how we get the word out there. It's not hard. You just have to start.
You just got to start.
Yeah.
Okay, coming in with more data.
Let's hear it.
The American Journal of Public Health published a 2010 review of over 100 studies that showed participation in arts and crafts was linked to increased psychological resilience, purpose, and social connectedness. And I'm going to follow this up with one more. A 2014 study in arts and health found that group craft activities significantly improved mental well being and reduced isolation, especially in women and older adults. Both of these are so profound for me. I want to go back and talk about that psychological resilience. I feel so passionately about the grit and problem solving that comes out of a creative activity. And I don't think people understand enough how much that filters over into other aspects of your life. I can't tell you how many times I've run into a hurdle with a project I'm working on. I stop working on it. I'm trying to work it out. I'm trying to work it out. All that problem solving and going back to make it work, that rolls over into life. That is how we deal with our daily problems, whether they're social, whether they're financial, whether it's just a house issue or a life issue. Being able to have the grit to persevere and have those problem solving skills is so huge. And then also, reducing the isolation is so important. I feel strongly that having those connected groups is what really keeps someone going. It's those relationships. I was just listening to a Mel Robbins podcast that talks about 3 benefits of health, and one of them was relationships. And there was a study she cited that said they can estimate someone's length of the rest of their life based on their relationships at the age of 50. Like if you have strong relationships and strong connected groups, chances are you will live longer because you are part of something and you have that connectedness with others.
Oh, yeah. Well, 2 things here. Have you seen the study, like the posts that have been going around lately saying that people with quote unquote granny hobbies tend to live like 8 or 10 years longer than others? I don't know how, I didn't dive into, but I've seen that circulate on social media lately. And, I don't love the term granny hobbies, but I get why they say that. But I also, post COVID, like we all worked like from home. I would say I'm an extrovert, but not everybody is. And I feel like those who were introverts became even further introverted and have been having to work really hard and be more conscious of putting themselves out there more again, because maybe they're going back into an office now, or maybe not. Like I still work from home. I work for a company that's not based where I'm at. So I fully work remote. There's weeks where sometimes the only day I leave my house and drive my car is to go to the grocery store. Because I get so busy with work and everything, but that's why me having sewing club puts me out of my house. Me connecting, even like doing the podcast and connecting with you all, is a way for me to kind of feel like I'm doing something outside of my, world, my day to day. And so I think there's ways to connect virtually, but I really encourage people to connect in person. Maybe it's not a creative outlet. Maybe it's a physical outlet. Maybe you find a new gym. Maybe you pick up pickleball. Maybe you volunteer somewhere. No, whatever suits your current phase of life. Honestly, like just getting out of the house is so beneficial. And I have to remind myself to do that because as an extrovert, I know when I need it and I get stir crazy. But people that are introverts may not get to feeling that way. But that's where you can feel like a loss of connection with others. And that is so important. Sign up for a class at a local shop. You may not know anybody, but you'll walk away with at least one new sewing friend.
I'm the introverted one in this partnership, and I can relate to those hurdles. I think there's definitely been times where I've hesitated to go to a sewing group or creative group because I just didn't know anybody. And the irony is we're all coming in with a common interest. So it shouldn't be that scary.
So you know what I don't, once I'm there, I'm okay. But if I'm going somewhere new, I get really anxious, like extreme anxiety, and I almost try to talk myself out of going. So even though I'm an extrovert, I have such anxiety going to new places for the first time, especially by myself. For me, what helps me feel comfortable, and this is different for everybody, is when you have anxiety about going somewhere new, I like to get there early. Me being in there before the crowd arrives makes me feel more comfortable so that as new people come in, it's in trickling in versus like me coming into a full room and that can feel overwhelming. So if you have anxiety about things like that, like maybe you signed up for a class at a sewing shop, a quilt shop, uh, get there early and be the first one in the room and pick a seat that makes you feel comfortable. And that's you controlling the environment as best you can so that as new people come in, you're meeting people one at a time and not a room of 10 people all at once. I'm just sharing that from personal experience. That helps me. And people are always like, why are you so early? It doesn't start for another 30 minutes. I'm like, yeah, but this is how I can get a lay of the land and ease into an environment that makes me feel anxious. And then I end up feeling so much better and I end up staying late and having fun and making new friends. But that, I don't know if that helps anybody listening, but that has helped me tremendously.
I think those are incredible tips. Try them, see how they work for you. And I think it really can show too, once you're there, how those sewing circles and even the modern online communities, like the Social
Yeah.
Hour podcast, really can create that community and support system. And just remember, when you go in those spaces, you're going in there with a common interest. So right there, part of the wall has already been broken down for you.
Yeah, at the end of the day, like try to control what you can to help you feel comfortable. But if you're not pushing yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit, we're not growing, we're not learning. And that's where life can get a little stagnant. And we really want you to have a good mental health and a good connection with community and finding people who like to do what you love to do. I mean, there's so many people that I would say I'm like super close with. They're my sewing friends. Some I've met in person, some I've never had a chance to meet in person yet. Hopefully one day. And will I say that we always agree on all the things happening in life? No. But that's the beauty of it. We come together on the one thing that we do have in common, and you only need one thing in common to start building those friendships. I think everything I do really focuses around that, and I know that's the same for you too, Audra. It's why we take the time to do this podcast, to connect with you. I think it's great to connect virtually as well. And that's why we love our Social Sewists Facebook group, as she mentioned, because we continue to meet people. We had someone comment the other day that they're where? In the Netherlands?
Yeah.
And I was like, we've gone worldwide. Like, I love it. I love that. I have never been to Netherlands. I don't know a whole lot about it other than kind of where it is and a little bit, but it's just cool that like someone I probably will never get to meet in person, but we've connected socially because of sewing.
Everything I know about the Netherlands comes from cycling because I'm a big cycling fan.
Yes.
So any reason I have to combine those two things I enjoy, cycling and sewing, I am here for. And I think before we go into Spool School, I think just one final thought is this is a really good reminder for all of us, I hope, to know that sewing is more and creating is more than just a hobby. It's also
Mhm.
very healing in multiple ways, mentally, physically, for your soul. So
Yeah.
just remember, think about why you sew and just remember that it's okay to take that time for yourself.
Yeah.
And with that, I think we'll roll
Absolutely.
into Spool School.
Yes. Spool School.
You
This
don't sound excited.
No, I am. This actually came up in my sew along I did recently, the Riley Blake sew along I did for Caterpillar at work. It was a 3-part series, and my colleague Melody was doing the lives with me, and she's not. She's a sewist in the sense that she's done like garments and prom dresses and wedding dresses. She's like, that's all I did. I was like, Melody, that's hard, and I wouldn't want to do
That's
that.
all I did.
That's
Just
all I
prom
did.
dresses.
She's like, I've never quilted, and quilting just seems so hard. But she had a mom who did all of her quilting by hand. And in her mind, it just took forever. And that's why she never got into it. But I'm teaching her that you can machine quilt and it can go faster and be really enjoyable. So she did the sew along with me, which I was really proud of her for sticking through it and doing it, because it wasn't a small project. But one thing that was interesting is on the third part to the series, and these are all recorded over on Caterpillar's YouTube channel if you want to go watch it. But she was like, my blocks didn't end up being 9.5 inches. They ended up being 9 inches. And I'm not sure why. And I was like, well, let's take a step back. I said, you have a new machine, and I know for a fact that your machine didn't come with a 1/4 inch piecing foot. So what foot are you using? And she said, just the one that came on it. And I was like, cool. And I said, did you use the lines on the needle plate and, where it says a 1/4 inch to guide your foot? And she goes, no, I lined it up with the edge of the foot. I said, okay, cool. So you did a 3/8 inch seam allowance and not a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And that's fine. And it was okay because she consistently did the same thing. So her blocks are a little smaller. No big deal. And that's totally fine. But we talked about ways to eliminate that if you don't have a 1/4 inch foot. And this is my Spool School tip is if you don't have a 1/4 inch foot and you're wanting to do piecing, and that 1/4 inch foot helps you get like that perfect 1/4 inch seam allowance, but there's other ways to do it. And so like masking tape, washi tape, putting tape where that 1/4 inch line is, because that line is faint and it's really easy to miss. It's hard to see sometimes. Putting tape there across your machine, not like duct tape, okay, but like a washi tape or something that like is easy to see and easily peel off and not leave a residue on your machine is great. And then you have more of a defined, obvious line to follow while you're stitching. That way you don't need another gadget. There's those magnetic seam guides, but it doesn't always work for everybody. And I just honestly, I've used tape. I've taught with tape. I've taught children, and I put tape along the machine so that they have an obvious guide of like where their fabric needs to be lined up, so that they are consistent with their seams, especially when they're learning something new. And so that's my tip of the day. It's like it's okay to put a little washi tape or a little like painter's tape or something like that on your machine to mark your seam allowance, so you are being consistent. Whether it's a 1/4 inch, 3/8 inch, 1/2 inch, whatever your seam allowance is, I would say that that's a fun, inexpensive, beginner-friendly tip. What about you, Audra? Do you have a tip for today?
Oh, I do have a tip for today. This is called Teaching an Old Dog New Tricks, but I recently taught a summer camp for kids. We taught a bag sewing summer camp. And in that camp, we had 2 amazing class assistants that were in the fashion program at the University of Wisconsin who were helping throughout the week, and they were incredible. And the machines we're using in class were not ones that I was super familiar with. And I wound my bobbin, and my bobbin just didn't wind right. And I was like, dang it. And I didn't want to like waste all this bobbin thread, but I was like, I got to wind a new bobbin because it didn't wind right. And that was user error. That was all me. And one of the students came over and they're like, oh, we'll just wind the bobbin onto another bobbin. And I was like, excuse me?
Excuse me?
And they're like, oh, and they just like flipped up the little thread spool holder, and they put it on there, and they wound it, and they wound that bobbin right onto another bobbin. And I was like, how am I like decades into sewing and I've never done this? Like, I can't tell you how many times that I have like unwound like a whole bobbin and wasted all that thread. Yeah. Come to find out that you can wind one bobbin onto another bobbin. Like almost just imagine that bobbin is just a little baby thread spool, and you just thread it through your machine just like you would a normal thread spool and wind it onto the other bobbin. My mind was blown. So this is not really my Spool School. This is me passing along knowledge for those other old dogs that want to learn new tricks that had no idea you could do things like this. And I own my naivete.
Hey, you don't know what you don't know. And if you've never thought of it that way, but you absolutely like, I've used a bobbin as my top thread because I wound extra bobbins for a project in a specific color. And I was like, I'm not going to probably use this color again, but I wound an extra bobbin and I need to use it instead of just waste it. And so I took the spool off and set it aside, and I just used the bobbin as my top thread. So I just was sewing with 2 bobbins, essentially.
I don't know. It was one of those like, how did I not think of this before? And for a quick second, I felt really dense, and I was like, no, I just learned something, and this is amazing, and I am going to pass along this knowledge to others.
Have you ever sewn with a twin needle?
Yes.
Okay. So instead of having 2 bigger spools that you have to find places for, you wind, if you're not sewing a lot with the twin needle, maybe it's just a top stitch, you wind 2 bobbins and put them both on the spool because they both feed through the same channel.
It's genius. And I can't even tell you how, okay.
Because a lot of machines only have place for like 1 spool. Yeah. And so you're trying to find a place to put the other spool for 2 threads to go through a twin needle. Yeah. But if you just wind bobbins, you can put both of them on that 1 spool. Or you could have put a bobbin and the big spool together, even with a spool cap.
What?
Yeah. So then they're together.
I'm having that like immediately feeling dense moment, but immediately feeling gratitude for learning something new. Like,
Absolutely.
that is amazing. So,
Yeah.
I hope you all learned along with me today. Okay, you love to see it. Bethany.
Oh, this one's a yin and a yang. It's a you love it, but you don't. My son is back off to college. He starts his sophomore year this week when this episode's airing. And I love to see him thriving. I love to see him finding his independence. Um, Getting back into his routine of school. I don't love the summer's over and he's gone. I'm trying to focus on the positive, and that is he's growing up, and I'm really proud of him.
When he's had a really great summer with like all the things he's done at home, and like I think he's gonna have a great year.
We made the most of a summer at home. We didn't travel anywhere. We didn't do anything crazy out anything like that. We were home. He got his first job. He you know, is finding himself, and but he's also really enjoyed spend like I don't force him to spend time with me, but he has spent a lot of time with me this summer. And been very helpful, like around the house, washing the dogs, helping mow the yard, like and without even being asked. He does the dishes like all the time, and it's his way, I think, of loving on me, which I appreciate. But I'm gonna miss someone washing the dogs and doing the dishes and taking out the trash and stuff as
Bringing
much.
you
But
breakfast.
making me breakfast in the morning. He makes scrambled eggs or cinnamon rolls like from scratch, and like he loves to like do for others. It's his love language. Acts of kindness is truly his love language. And so I'm going to miss having that around. But we definitely soaked up a lot of the summer together. We did a lot of puzzles together this summer. A lot. I don't know, 6 or 7 different puzzles this summer. I think we went to several stores and bought different ones over the summer, but um just unwinding, playing guitars, doing all of that. It's just been really nice to soak it all in. It just goes by so fast. So
It does.
I am really proud of him though, and I'm excited for him to start this semester because he's starting a new focus on his major. So last year he started his freshman year as a computer science major and quickly realized that was not for him. He wants to make with his hands. He's pretty creative. And so he is now switched to a manufacturing engineering degree. So a lot more math, but he's really smart, and I know he's going to do well. And he's worked really hard this summer to set himself up for success. So I'm really hoping for the best for this semester for him. He's still doing his rock climbing and all of that too. And yeah, he's got a really good group of friends. So I know he's in good hands, but I miss him. That's my love to see it. He's back off to school, and I'm actually really happy for him. He's done a lot of growing up in the last year, and yeah, I think we're feeling a little more confident going into this year than we were his freshman year. Freshman year is so scary. What about you? What's your you love to see it? I know you kind of mentioned it a little bit.
Yeah, I teed it up a little bit. I taught a bag sewing summer camp in the last few weeks, and it was for
Mhm.
ages 9 through 14. And it was such a heartwarming experience. I truly feel I walked away learning more than they did.
Yeah.
They have no fear. They don't overthink anything. And it kind of goes back to what you were talking about earlier about just diving in and going. I
Mhm.
mean, when I teach adults, it's all the details. These kids just go. They're just you say like, "We want you to sew these 2 things together." "Okay." And they just go do it, and then they're back and it's done. And you're like, "How did you do that so fast?" Cuz they just dive in and go, and they have such passion and such excitement and such resilience. It goes back to that resilience
Yes.
for them to have dates with the seam ripper. There were a few kids that came up to me. I say, "Okay, you need to sew this piece to this piece." They'd
Mhm.
come up to me, "Did I do it right?" "Nope, you did it wrong." And like I say, "Grab the seam ripper." And they're sitting there with the seam ripper, taking it all apart, and they do it again.
Yeah.
And it's the grit and it's the
Mhm.
resilience. And they are, I had to laugh. There was one little girl who made a few mistakes. And my favorite quote of the week, it was on Wednesday, And she was basically taking apart a lot of what she had already done. And she's there with the seam ripper. And she's like, I would rather be doing anything in the world than this. And I'm like, girl, I feel you.
Welcome to
But
sewing.
I'm like, I feel you. I've been there. But it's going to be worth it. And you know what? She had the cutest bag. We got it done. She was so excited. So that little moment of like, oh, this is not fun, but then realizing the end product is worth it. It is just so heartwarming and so fulfilling. And I'm already planning for next year's summer camp. It makes you realize it's okay to just let go and enjoy. And it's a great topic for this episode.
One of the ones that you shared with me though was like a little girl who, when she got done, she's like, I'm going to stitch beads on it. And she started like making it her own and expressing herself. And it was just like this, like, I'm going to do this. And she did it. And I love that. I think it's a good reminder, not just like the fearlessness to go for it and just start. It's just like that fearlessness to just do it.
And some of the things they did, I don't even know how they did it. Like they came up to me and they're like, oh, I added this and I did this and I did this. And I'm like, I don't even know how I would have started to do that, but they just went, and it was so good. And I can't wait to teach my next class, and looking forward to not only teaching adults, but I love teaching the next generation, because we got to keep this hobby alive.
Keep this going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So who do we have next week, Bethany?
Next week we have Adam So Fun on Instagram. Adam is he's an educator for all things long arm quilting. We haven't really talked a whole lot about long arming on the podcast. It's something that I'm very interested in. I met Adam in Sydney, Australia. Very smart, knows long arming, is a great teacher. So I'm excited to dive into it with him, because this is definitely something that I'm interested in doing myself, and working towards getting a long arm. So I have questions. I have all the questions for Adam.
I'm looking forward to it. And again, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. We are 23 episodes in. This is crazy. And we're so happy that you guys are continuing to listen. And please join us on Facebook in the Social Sewists Facebook group. Make sure to go watch and comment on YouTube, and share us with your friends if you think we're fun and worth listening to. And we can't wait to see you in the next episode. Happy sewing.
Bye.